Is wrong. Now, why are we starting in Xi'an, Louise?
Well, Diana, there is an historical significance as to why we start our journey here. This is where the fabled Silk Road began, when thriving trade first brought ancient China in contact with foreign influences. But that was thousands of years ago, and now modern China is faced with the daunting task of introducing the West to the 21st century and alleviating millions from poverty. Western China, a region of mountain ranges, deserts and plateaus of yellow earth. The 12 provinces make up 70% of the country's land and 30% of the population. Despite its wealth of resources, the West is steeped in poverty and lags behind in development. The plan to go west has been described as the second phase of China's reform and opening up. 20 years ago, reform started in 4 special economic zones in the east. By 1984, 14 coastal cities had opened up to foreign trade. These cities enjoy privileged policies to allow business to thrive. But all this time, the West was left behind. Deng Xiaoping once said the coastal regions of China must be allowed to develop first. He also said once that has reached a certain stage, energy must then be diverted to the central and western regions. Tibet is perhaps the poorest of the lot. Imports and exports from this roof of the world have to pass more than 1,000 kilometers along often broken roads. The cost of transport results in high inflation. The central government plans to build a railway crossing the barren land between Qinghai and Tibet, stretching all the way to Lhasa. The project will begin this July. Work is also underway to connect Xinjiang's Taklamakan Desert to the rest of the country. This is the source of China's newly tapped natural gas. The gas is brought to the east through more than 4,000 kilometers of pipeline all the way to Shanghai. Hydroelectricity generated in the southwest of the country is pivotal in bringing the resources of the west to the coast. Education is another priority in developing the West. Children here study in schools that have nothing more than the bare basics. The government wants to increase subsidies to the region, for example, by installing satellite dishes to bring the rest of the world to the young people of Western China. The ultimate aim of this mammoth project is to lift the West out of poverty so that the people can become self-sufficient and enjoy the riches of their land. Now, last year at the National People's Congress, the government announced its plan to develop the West. Not only are they aware of the great difficulties involved in doing so, but they're also aware of the great potential in each province. Diana?
Thanks, Louise. Now to Sue Lannan in Inner Mongolia. Sue, what teething problems is the central government facing with its current Go West plan?
Okay, thanks very much, Diana. Well, some of the problems faced by the Inner Mongolian government is, for example, the environmental conditions here. Range of extremes such as blizzards and sandstorms. Now, one of the things we'll be looking at is the environmental degradation and especially the loss of grazing lands. In fact, about 1,000 hectares each year are lost to deserts in Inner Mongolia. Now, another problem being faced by Inner Mongolia and, in fact, the entire western region is a lack of educated people rather than a lack of money to fund China's western development. In the second half of this year, Beijing will launch policies to encourage professionals, as well as those with appropriate skills, to move from east to west. Now, it also hopes to encourage Hong Kong investors to Western China.
Western China is blessed with rich natural resources, but the education and professional standards of its people are way behind those in the east. Of the 12 provinces, 11 are unable to provide 9 free years of education to all children.
力争5到10年以内取得突破性的进展，同时使科技教育有较大的发展。
Over the past year, Beijing has found that without talented people, no amount of money can spur the economy of these backward regions.
包括中央国家机关的干部和东部地区也要有一些干部到西部地区挂职锻炼。我们设想，比如3年是一期。
This policy is expected to be announced later this year. The central government is hoping it will help narrow the disparity between East and West. Officials involved in the Western Development Project believe as long as there's talent, then investors will come. That's part of the reason why a lot of emphasis is placed on an upcoming visit by a Hong Kong government-led delegation next month. But officials say anyone thinking of putting their money in the West must look at it as a long-term investment. One obstacle the government anticipates is the large number of ethnic minorities living in the region. Officials are hoping they can overcome any differences sparked by religious differences.
Thanks, Sue Lannon in Inner Mongolia. Now, turning back to Louise, what stories can we expect in the coming days, Louise?
Well, Diana, over the next 3 days, we'll look at how Shaanxi province will achieve its aim of becoming the economic powerhouse of northwest China. We'll show you how it'll use its historical and high-tech advantage to do so. That's all from here in Xi'an. Diana, back to you in Hong Kong.
Thank you, Louise. And in other news, the U.S. has been thwarted in its bid to condemn China at the annual meeting of the UN Human Rights Commission. The Commission voted to block consideration of an American-sponsored resolution expressing serious concern over China's human rights record. Jeremy Austin reports.
Members of the Falun Gong spiritual movement staged a silent protest in Geneva in support of the US-backed move to condemn China's human rights record. But the resolution suffered the same fate as many before it. China proposed a motion of no action, and its annual lobbying effort paid dividends once again.
China, yes. United States of America, no.
23 of the 53 nations represented on the commission supported the no action motion. Only 17 were opposed. China welcomed the outcome and accused Washington of trying to tarnish its international image. The US called the result unfortunate, while human rights groups questioned the effectiveness of the UN Commission.
Year in, year out, China, a major world power and a leading human rights violator, has escaped scrutiny by using this procedure to block any debate of its human rights record. This reflects extremely badly on the work of the Commission overall.
The Commission did pass resolutions censuring Cuba and Israel. Jeremy Austin, TVB News.
Bangladesh today denied provoking border clashes with India, in which at least 18 soldiers have been killed and a dozen civilians wounded. The fighting took place mainly along Bangladesh's northern border with India's Assam state. At least 16 Indian and 2 Bangladeshi soldiers were killed yesterday in what New Delhi claims was an unprovoked attack. The border skirmishes followed a weekend incident in which Bangladesh seized a frontier outpost in Meghalaya state, reportedly taking at least 20 Indian troops hostage. The dispute centers around land that, after demarcation of the border in 1971, is being held by one side while being
好几百位王公村的村民在中午以后聚集包围王公